like to give everyone a bit of fair warning as I start this podcast. This is probably going to be the longest podcast I ever do. I expect it to be at least over a half an hour. I got a couple different things I want to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about is baseball and the Cubs and just some greater thoughts on sports and coaching and athletes in general. One of the things that you might notice as you look at the MLB standings, if you do look at Major League Baseball standings, is that the Cubs are currently 4 games over 500. And you would think, wow, that's pretty decent. I mean, 4 games over 500, that means you're slightly above average team. They're currently 4 games out of the last wild card spot, which was the 7th wild card spot that got added way back when. By way back when, I mean a few years ago. And if you look at their performance in comparison to last year, and last year people were pretty excited about them as they were near the end of the season because the Cubs were about just as good, except they were more so in the playoff race. I think the teams at the top, the ones that are in the wild card race back last year, weren't as good as they are this year. So that's where the discrepancy lies. But if you look at it, the Cubs from last year to this year, the one major difference that they made was they got the manager from the Brewers, Craig Counsell, over into their fold, and they were like thinking that is going to make a huge difference. And you look at the Brewers, and the Brewers are currently in first place, well ahead of the Cubs, and I think it just shows that sometimes when people think the problem is like, oh, we just got to change the coach and it'll make a huge difference. I don't think that's always the case. I think it shows that Craig Counsell maybe didn't make as much of an impact as you'd think, and that the talent, the ability of the players, I should say, their strive and their effort to be great and to win games is more important than the coaching, and you can see that in other areas as well. To say that coaching is important would be wrong. I mean, it's extremely important, but I think there are instances where you can see in certain cases where maybe the players matter more. Tom Brady left the Patriots, went to the Buccaneers, and granted, there was a lot of good players around him. They won the Super Bowl. They went to the playoffs multiple times, and it's not to say that Bill Belichick isn't a great coach, but you have to wonder, was he the reason they were winning Super Bowls? I think that's one of those questions you have to ask. I mean, you look at the Houston Astros in Major League Baseball, and they seemingly are winners year after year after year, even with all the scandals they have and all that stuff going on. They're still winning now. And the thing is, last couple of years, they haven't started off great, but the players themselves managed to find a way to do what they need to do and win. And I think that shows in many other sports as well. Basketball, it's a player sport. It's, hey, they control what happens, and it's because I think the folks in basketball understand, like, if you don't have the best players on your team, if you don't have that chemistry, you're not going to win. I mean, you look at the people that have won NBA championships. The Celtics have a plethora of good players on their team. And even before that, teams like the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry is one of the greatest players ever. And Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks, and they're winning. He's arguably one of the best players in the NBA right now, especially given his size. His physical attributes give him a huge advantage over other people, and it's a thing. So I think sometimes you just need to look at the problem and see, like, is it something where we have good players but we just can't make it through? Or is it something where we don't have that great players, we played above expectation? What was it? And it makes you wonder, was it the fact that the manager was doing more than you expected to? Something we probably won't ever know, because I don't think they're going to hire David Ross again, rehire him, now that they've taken away Craig Counsell. I mean, Seems unlikely. So, but that's just something that I've been thinking about and just wondering. Like sometimes you could just tell. It's like if there's not enough talent on the team, if you think that hey, like these guys aren't that good, you're probably right. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next topic. The next topic that I have is going to be I'm going to go over my car stickers. I guess I got asked about this the other day. There these people walking their dog, and they saw the stickers on my car, and they obviously noticed I had taken some of the stickers off. The reason that I put stickers on my car is for me, and is to remind me of things that I should do. And but they did notice it, and I tell people, if it benefits you, by all means, that's more power to you. I appreciate that it does that. If it doesn't, that's fine. It's what it does for me is how I view it. But they were interested about the stickers on my car, and one of the things I had mentioned was, I don't have as many as I did before. I'd taken some off because they weren't providing meaning to me anymore that they did when I initially put them on. At least, I should say, I didn't take all of them off. There was one that will always be on there. It says "Do the right thing," and I think that's the case no matter what. And it's going to be on every car I own. Even when ultimately I think I'll have to get a new car, hopefully not anytime soon. But as a result of my car being empty for the past couple months, I have been thinking about what to put on there, and I had an idea of what I wanted to put on there, but hadn't gotten to the point where I was I had the stuff to put on there, I guess is what I should say. I had ideas forming in my head, but I hadn't fully formulated it. So with that said, I got 18 new stickers that I'm going to put in my car. I'm going to go over each one of them, and hence why this podcast will be a little bit long. I want to make sure I give a proper due to each sticker that I put on my car. So, first sticker, there's no particular order on these. I don't know, how each one is important in its own way. And I'll just leave it at that. So the first one is learn to adapt. And it says, you are not entitled to anything. The world around you is always changing. So I got this from Who Moved My Cheese. It's a book, and I all these are audio books that I listen to. I obviously they have physical copies of the books, but I think I've mentioned this before. Audio books are a key thing for me. So learn to adapt. It talks about how the world is going to keep changing around you, and you can't assume that you're going to be able to always do the same thing that you did every time before, and that you're going to get the same results, and you're going to get the same amount of happiness and pleasure. If you think about the people that you knew back in elementary school, the people you knew in middle school, people you knew in high school, all that stuff changes, and then you get to college, and you go past that to your professional lives, and people start moving, people start having family, people start having kids. Different things happen, and certain relationships will grow and certain ones will fade. You'll talk to different people throughout your life, and you'll have different interests as you learn more and more things. And I think we just have to make sure we understand that, like, hey, this is going to happen. We can't be like Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, who we don't embrace change. We have to acknowledge that it's going to happen and find ways that, hey, when this stuff changes, we have to be able to adapt ourselves to make sure that we still find joy and pleasure and happiness in what we do. And when I see learn to adapt, actually one of the funny things is I never thought I'd actually be watching this all the time, but Ron Lucas is I think it's from the 90s, to be honest with you. Might even be earlier, might even be from the 80s for all I know. I think it's from the 90s though. Ron Lucas was a ventriloquist, and he's just so good with what he did, and there's different YouTube videos of him, and one of them is him with a sock, and the sock starts speaking Spanish. He's like, wait, you speak Spanish? And And the sock's like, learn to adapt. Like, yeah, you just gotta go with what happens on the fly. You never know what'll happen. So that's one of those things where that sticker will be on my car. I think it will be on the front right side somewhere. I think above the wheel. If I remember correctly, I had this mapped out so that I have enough space for all these. There are quite a lot of stickers, so I was like, oh, am I gonna be able to fit this on the car? And figured out that yes, I am. So learn to adapt. You are not entitled to anything. The world around you is always changing. That's the first sticker. Second sticker that I'm going to have on my car is don't have goals, have habits. You can't control the results. You can control what you do. So a lot of people have goals. It's just a common thing. It's a thing that everyone tells you to do is to, like, hey, have a goal, have a dream, have something that you want to do. And this actually came from the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I talked about this book before. I mean, I think I've talked about mostly all these books before. There's one new one that I'm reading that I'll get into, and I don't think I've talked about that before, but when we get to that sticker, I'll mention it. So, but this comes from that book, and then, you can't control what the end result is. You might think you can, but at the end of the day, you don't have any control over it. You have control over what you do. So you can have good habits of saying, hey, I'm going to eat this on a daily basis. I'm going to do this on a daily basis. And as an end result, you might end up getting, lost weight or better body fat percentage, looking better, feeling better, more energy, whatever it is. If you have that type of goal. You could have a work goal, and this is one of those things where they asked us to fill out our goals at work, and I was like, okay, I, at this point, don't believe in goals anymore. It doesn't make sense. And I basically wrote in that thing, hey, I don't believe in goals, I believe in habits. You can't control what the end result is, so you'll never be certain that you'll get to your goal, but you can control what habits, what inputs you want to put in. So making sure that you listen to people and that you're nice to people, making sure that you're asking for help and that you're trying to do stuff in a timely manner are things that you can control and do. And what ends up happening is hopefully something good. And if it's not, then you adjust what your inputs are. You say, okay, well, if I'm not seeing the end results be what I need it to be, how do I adjust that? And you live with it. And I think it's important that we have good inputs and we have good habits, because that will lead hopefully that will lead to the results we want. But we have no guarantee of that, so we have to do our best to make sure we have good habits in what we're doing. And if we can do that, that should hopefully lead to good results. And if not, it's at least you're doing what you think is right and what you think makes sense to do. And if that's what you're doing, you can't ever feel like you didn't give it your all, or that you did something you didn't want to do. You're doing what you think makes sense. That sticker is going to be, let's see. You know what? I will, I hate, OneDrive is great for work, but for your own personal computer, it's just like, why? Anyway, that'll be above the front left wheel of the car. Don't have goals. Have habits. Don't have goals. Have habits. You can't control the results. You can't control what you do. So that'll be on the front left wheel, above the front left wheel of the car. The next sticker that is going to be on the car is happiness is a choice. The world is neutral. You choose how you feel. And so this also comes from the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and he talks about the fact that, like, when you look at the world is neutral. I mean, we think that there are certain things that should and shouldn't be a certain way, but he brings about, like, if you look at it from like the eyes of a tree, it's like ultimately just stuff is happening. Doesn't determine whether it's good or bad. Stuff is just happening. And so realistically, everything that happens is neutral. I mean, we assign how we feel about it. We assign if we feel happy or sad or, any sort of way about it. I mean, you, for example, can think about like football season coming up, fantasy football. We all have people on our teams, or at least are going to be drafting teams for those of you that play fantasy football. And normally, if you didn't play fantasy football, you wouldn't really care whether a certain wide receiver made a catch for 15 yards. But if you have that player on your team, you are overly excited that player made that catch, and you're happy about it. And if you are going up against that player, you're unhappy that player did well that day. If they went for 110 yards and 6 receptions with a touchdown, you're probably not happy about that. But the world is neutral. I mean, you choose how you want to feel about it, and then you're choosing to feel happy about it because that player is on your team. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's your choice. And I do think that helps then to realize, like, okay, there are certain situations that we're choosing to feel angry, we're choosing to feel upset. I think we need to look at it and see the deeper meaning of why it is that we feel that way, and is it really that big of an impact to us, given that the world is neutral? Like, how much does this really impact us, and what can we do to spin it to make it happier? And it coincides with one of the other stickers that are going to be on my car. Some of these have similar thoughts and expressions, but yes, happiness is definitely a choice. So sticker is going to be happiness is a choice, the world is neutral, you choose how you feel, and that is going to be on the rear bumper of the car. Next sticker is empathy is seeing from their perspective. Regardless of whether it's rooted in reality, understanding others requires empathy and actively listening to them with your phone in your pocket. It's a bit of a long one, but this comes from Chris Voss. Somewhat. The phone in your pocket is definitely not something that he specifically said is something that I added, because I think it comes from other sources, and I honestly can't remember which ones right now, but and it makes sense in general, is that empathy is being able to see what others feel from their perspective. So whether it's true or not, it's how they view the world. You mentioned the world is neutral. I mean, there's stuff that happens and it's factual, and it's like, hey, this happened. Good or bad, this happened. And their reality might be something different. And we have to be able to see things from their reality to understand how they operate. And that's important, because once we understand them, we can better coincide with these people. If in order to do that, though, you have to be listening to them. You have to understand them by listening to them and what they're talking about and how they feel. And doesn't mean you have to agree with them. You just have to listen to them. And in order to do that, your phone can't be in your hands, and your phone can't be on the table where you can get a message pop up and you get distracted. And your phone, you can't be texting someone while you're talking to them. That's not actively listening to them. And what that does is that shows, hey, I'm not interested in you. You're not my number one priority. And then I'm not really fully listening to everything you're saying, because when you're texting someone, you're looking down at the phone, you can't see their facial expressions. You can't see their body language in any way. And that's a key part of their conversation and how they talk and what it is that they're trying to get across. Whether they're, rolling their eyes, whether they're they have like a smile on their face, or they're doing something silly. Like you won't see any of that when you have your face in your phone, or when you're constantly like distracted and in your peripheral looking at your phone waiting for an update. You won't be able to see that. And it's important to make sure that we give the full attention to the people that we're talking to, so that we can understand them and have better conversations with them, have better cooperation, have better communication with these people. I think it's important to be able to understand other people and not just yourself, to hopefully make sure that you make sure that they know that they're there. And again, there's another one similar to this that I'll get into. But this sticker is empathy is seeing from their perspective, regardless of whether it's rooted in reality. Understanding others requires empathy and actively listening to them with your phone in your pockets. This particular sticker is going to be going on the back right wheel near the top of it. So there's that. The next sticker that is going to be there is going to be, it says, do not ask, how are you? Ask questions that elicit meaningful responses, i.e., where are you going on your next vacation? This comes from Chris Voss as well, or at least I should say, like, all these come as in my interpretations of these audiobooks and or master classes that I get. Chris Voss has a audiobook as well that I listen to called Never Split the Difference. It's similar to his master class. I think his master class goes more into detail on his visual as well, and then he has a working session on the side of the master class that goes along with that website that goes into workplace type of stuff as well, and it's super helpful. But do not ask, how are you? I hate that question now, and it's one of those things I didn't realize until I came to it. When somebody asks, how are you, your typical responses are, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm okay. Usually you're not going to give more of a response than that, and it's not giving you any meaningful details. It doesn't help you to continue the conversation. It's like, okay, I'm good. It's like, great, now I got to ask another question anyway if I want to know more about you. It's like, that was a kind of a waste of question. You kind of, really the only thing you get is their mood. And most of the time, if people are in a bad mood or not happy about it, they're really not going to want to talk about it, I find, and that they'll say they're good even if they're not. So I don't know how much of a real good answer you'll get out of that, and that's why I say ask questions that elicit meaningful responses. So if I ask, where are you going on your next vacation, one of the things you're going to think about, one is, my next vacation. I mean, you're generally happy about a vacation. Most people love vacations. Most people want to go on vacations, and then they're going to talk about it because they're excited about it, and they get to talk about someplace that they get to go, and then you get to learn what these people like. All right, this person wants to go, to France or something, or they want to go to England because they want to see a certain thing. It's like, okay, well, if they're wanting to see like a specific thing, like you can understand their hobbies from that potentially, and you can just ask more questions off of that. And it helps to get you into a deeper conversation where you could have a quick 5-minute conversation or a 10-minute conversation, understand that somebody doesn't, for example, like to dance because they think they look weird. And you can get into so many different things with that and bring out things that you would normally never bring out and do it so in a comfortable way where they're not, feeling pressured. So that is another sticker. Do not ask, how are you? Ask questions that elicit meaningful responses, i.e., where are you going on your next vacation? That sticker is going to be on the back left passenger door on the top half of that. The next sticker is be present. You can't change the past. You can't predict the future. Don't mentally stress about things you can't control. And so this comes from two different sources, in a sense. One is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and the other is The Almanac Naval Ravikant. So it came from both of those, and meaning kind of the same thing, is that none of us have the ability to change the past, or if we do, we are not aware of it. None of us have the ability to predict the future, and if we did, we would all be in Vegas. I say that, as a metaphor. I actually have no idea what the right word is there, but basically what I mean is that, you would try and, if you knew how to predict the future, you'd just go gamble and get some money and live a fat, happy life. I'm sure at some point someone would catch on, but it'd be like Okay, you can predict the future. That's pretty cool. Obviously, none of us can do that. We can all guess at what we think is going to happen, but realistically, when you look at it, none of us can actually predict the future accurately all the time. It doesn't happen. So, with that said, there's no point in mentally stressing about certain things that happened in the past. You can't change it. It is what it is. It's done. You can learn from it. That's different, but you can't change it. So if you're mentally stressing about something that you did, it doesn't make sense. If you're learning from it and you're taking something from it, that's fine. And I guess there's an instance where I guess supposedly Kobe Bryant, they were asking him, he missed 3 shots at the end of the game, and you could see him with his hands on his head and whatnot. And they asked him afterwards in the interview, like, well, how are you feeling? He's like, well, it doesn't matter how I was feeling. I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong so I could fix it next time, and I did. And so that's what it comes down to is you can learn from the past events, but you don't need to dwell on, okay, man, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had done this. It's in the past. You can't do that in the past. You can change how you have your inputs and your habits in the future, but you can't change the past, and you can't predict the future. You never know what someone's going to do, what someone's going to say, how things are going to turn out. It's impossible to know. Somebody might think like, oh, shoot, I'm going to go here on this day, and all of a sudden there's a traffic jam and you're an hour late and you missed whatever it is you're trying to get to. You can't mentally stress about certain things that you can't predict. Or like you're thinking, oh man, I'm dreading talking to this person. They're going to say this, this, and this. And it's like, you don't know what they're going to say. You have these thoughts and ideas of like, oh, I think they're going to say this. I think they're going to say this. And at the end of the day, when they get down to it, they won't say all those things. They won't say it in exactly the way you think they're going to say it. There's going to be some slight differences in what they do. And so to try and replay that over and over in your head and mentally stress about it is unnecessary. If you're trying to prepare, that's a different thing. But to mentally stress about it is unnecessary. I think preparation makes sense, right? You're going to give a speech. You can control that. You can control your speech in a sense. You don't know if you're going to get interrupted or not, but you can try and control, okay, this is how I want to give it. And if you get interrupted, you live in the moment. You be present and you deal with it as it comes. So that sticker, be present. You can't change the past. You can't predict the future. Don't mentally stress about the things you can't control. So that sticker is going to be on the top of the trunk door, I guess. And it's going to be on the left half of that. The next sticker is you can't control what others think of you. Even if you think you're doing something good, they can think whatever they want. So just be you. This happens all the time. People will think something of you, and you're trying to change their mind. You're trying to make sure that they don't think that of you ever again. And it happens all the time, whether somebody says something bad about you or somebody says that you don't do something, whatever it is. And you might think like, oh, I'm gonna change their mind. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that, and you go do it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they may change their minds and they may not. But you have no control of that. They can still think the same thing even after you do what you do. And so to try and do things because you think you can change what other people are going to think of you, I think is with the wrong intentions. You can't control what they think. No matter what it is you try and do, you can't control what they think. So you should always just try and be you and just do what you think makes the most sense. And in my case, it's do the right thing. So always do the right thing, regardless of whether someone else thinks it's right or wrong. You're not going to be able to change their mind. They're going to have their own opinions of you regardless. And I think you should just try to be yourself when you go about doing things that you want to do. And obviously, like I said, making sure that it's with doing things in the right mind space. I don't condone doing things intentionally to harm people or in any way be negative towards people. I think you should be doing what you think is the right thing to do. And if you think the right thing is to harm someone else, I think you should probably rethink that. And it's my thoughts, obviously. But it's just like, hey, making the world better, making the world a decent place, I think is a part of these philosophies, and thoughts and certain things that, hey, is your intention is to do something good, and that's really what matters. So with that, you can't control what others think of you. Even if you think you're doing something good, they can think whatever they want. So just be you. That's going to be on the right side passenger door, front right passenger door, on the top half of that door. Next sticker is, there will always be people that don't like you. Everyone has their own thoughts and opinions. Be honest and don't make stuff up to appease others. So this coincides with the last one. Both of these are from Models by Mark Manson, and you're gonna find, no matter where you go, there's always gonna be people that don't like you. A majority of people, I guess what I would say is this: there's gonna be a lot of people that don't like you because you're doing something that they can't do, or you have different values than they do, or they've just been raised to not like those type of people, or they have a negative experience with a person that is similar to you. There's whatever it is, and maybe it's not even rational in your mind, it's rational in their mind. Whatever it is, there's always going to be people that don't like you, and there's really nothing you can do about it because they have their own thoughts and opinions, and like I said in the last one, you can't control what they think. And with their own thoughts and opinions, whether they like you or not is not something you control. So be honest. If you are hanging out with people and they say something that you don't like, you don't have to make something up to agree with them and just be like, oh yeah, I totally agree with them. And it's like deep down, like, actually I don't. Be honest. And if there are people that don't accept that, maybe they're people that you shouldn't hang out with, because if they don't like what you are interested in, if they're not a fan of you, then that's a problem. If they are willing to accept that you have differences, which I think everyone should be willing to accept that, hey, we all have differences, but as long as we can hang out with good human beings, I think that's what matters. And what's important is that's the critical piece, because there's always going to be things that we disagree about. And so it's very important to be honest, to not try and be someone that you're not, is key. If you think that, like, you need to take a break from something and to be able to wrap your head around that then it makes sense, and you go do that. There's going to be people who don't like certain things that you do because of the way you do it. And you just have to, if you're honest with yourself, you'll find people that will like what you do, and you will be able to gravitate to and hang out with those people instead. There will always be people that don't like you, and there's going to be people that do like you. You just have to be honest. So, because everyone has their own thoughts and opinions, and it is what it is. I mean, like I said, you can't control what they think. So, there will always be people that don't like you. Everyone has their own thoughts and opinions. Be honest and don't make stuff up to appease others. That is going to go on the, let's see, it's the back left passenger door on the bottom. And let's see, what's next? The next sticker, just to clarify, so these stickers, I just placed an order for them. These stickers are going to be coming in hopefully in the next couple of weeks here. And then they're individual cut letter stickers. I'm going to be putting on my car. If you, I can, outside of this podcast, if you want to message me about where I get my stickers from, they're removable stickers, and they're super easy to remove, super easy to put on. They're super long lasting. I know I got stickers in 2016 that lasted for 7 years before I took them off, and they were still good. I had to change them. I wanted to change them, and yeah. So if you do want to message me after, of course, at the Risha Mishra podcast on Instagram, or if you know me personally, you can message me via text, or I believe these podcasts get posted to YouTube. So if you leave a comment there, hopefully I'll be able to see it. and hopefully not miss it. But let me know if you want to know where I get my stickers from. But with that said, I'm going to move on to the next sticker. The next sticker is let's see, where is, sorry. To feel seen is as essential as food and water. Never make someone feel like they don't exist. Everyone has something important to share. This comes from David Brooks, I believe. His book is... Hold on one second as I pull it up because I don't want to mess up the title. It's How to Know a Person by David Brooks. So, in this book, he talks about the fact that, like, when you make people feel like they're irrelevant or that they don't exist, that has a mental impact on them. And our mental health is as important as our physical health with food and water. And that's kind of what that means, is that when you are actively making someone feel like they don't exist, you are hurting their mental health. Now, there's varying degrees of this. There are certain people who may not care as much as others, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you are hurting their mental health. You want to make sure that they know that they exist and that they are important. Everyone has something important to say. I don't care who it is. Like, we may think certain people are weird, but that's just because we don't do the things that they do. Somebody always has something, whether it's a person that makes hot sauce or whether it's a person that likes playing soccer, or whether it's a person that likes to do arts and crafts or play the piano or fantasy football, somebody that likes to read books, somebody that is devoted Christian, somebody, like, there are so many different things that you can learn from so many different people that are important to them. You should never make them feel like they don't exist just because they believe in something or are interested in something that you're not interested in. And, I'm not saying that you have to be their best friend by any stretch of the imagination, but you should at least acknowledge them and give them the time of day and at least be able to have a short conversation with them. And I think that's important. It's one of those things where obviously mental health is a big topic in our country and in many countries nowadays, and I think it's become a bigger and bigger thing. But looking at health, there's many aspects. I don't know. I mean, this is something that, like, as doctors, maybe that's something that they might be able to help understand or explain, is just like, how does one's mental health impact a human physically and in their body, and can it have negative impacts? I imagine it can. I have to believe it can, but I'm not an expert on these things, so I would have to defer to those people. But it makes sense from a common sense standpoint, and so that's kind of where my thoughts agree with David Brooks on that aspect of, you want to make sure that people know that they're important, that they are seen, and that you don't make someone feel like they're a ghost. And as a result of that includes ghosting. Like, don't ghost people. Have the respect that they're a human being and that, they're going to, if you have talked to them before, you have interacted with them, just have the honest conversation with them. Just, like, be able to be honest. Like, if someone can't take it, that's on them. That's their problem. As like a favorite thing that, like, Reshma, Nardo's wife, always says, like, that sounds like a you problem. Very much so. You do what you gotta do, and they're gonna feel some sort of way about it. But that's what it is, and so I think it's important to make sure people know that they have been seen and that they're important and that they exist. So to feel seen is as essential as food and water. Never make someone feel like they don't exist. Everyone has something important to share. So that one is going to be on the top of the back left wheel, on top of the back left wheel. That sticker is. The next one comes, it's from Models by Mark Manson. This one says, rejection is inevitable, but sometimes you only need one person to say yes. Don't be scared to try for something you want. So in his book, he talks about the fact that a majority of the time you're going to get rejected, and I think this applies to more than just like relationships and whatnot. But I think this applies to just about everything. Is that like majority of the time you're going to get rejected. A majority might be wrong. There are plenty of times that you will get rejected. Maybe it's not a majority. For some people, it will be a majority. For some people, it won't be. But nobody has a 100% record of not ever being rejected in everything that they ask to do. Nobody gets every single thing that they want. That said, you really only need, I say, one person to say yes or to doing something that you want to do. And so as a result of that, don't be scared to try and go for something we want. So like if you want to do something, if you want to try it, keep asking, and eventually there will be somebody that says yes. When that happens, it's impossible to know, but at some point it will happen. And ultimately you only need one person to say yes. Essentially that lies in the fact that like this is one of those things where it's like it comes to like, I guess I'll use an example from LinkedIn. I don't actually know this guy. I think he's the brother of Alan Matthew, and if I'm not mistaken, younger brother. But this guy Aji posted about how he wanted to run a marathon, and like how he's obviously not, if you just decide you want to run a marathon, you obviously didn't qualify for the Chicago Marathon. So I guess he looked for charitable opportunities to run a marathon. There's like 150 different charitable sponsors, and they were all saying no, except finally one of them said, yeah, sure, you can run as a part of this charity. You had to, be able to raise a certain amount of money, and then you can run. I think that shows the example of like, hey, you only need one person to say yes to some of these things sometimes. So, and I was talking to Nardo about this, like, in his book, he talks about like how this guy says something very crude, but ultimately at the end of the day, you could say that to 500 people, and if 499 people are just like, F you, but one person's like, sure. It's really all that matters. You just need that one person that says yes, and somebody will most likely say yes at some point eventually. So, just don't be scared to try for something that you specifically want. You see this, you want this, you want to go do something. You can ask people, and maybe all your friends say no, but at some point, maybe somebody finally says yes, and you can go do that thing. It's just an example, but just understanding that rejection is inevitable. So that sticker is rejection is inevitable, but sometimes you only need one person to say yes. Don't be scared to try for something you want. So that sticker is going to be on the top driver door, top half of the driver door. I think that's one of those things that for me is most important to understand. I have a hard time with that one, for sure. When the next sticker is, when there is no closure, create a positive reality. It's better to be happy than angry, i.e., that car cut me off and whizzed by me because they have to get to the hospital. You'll likely never see them again anyways. I mean, the key there is like, yeah, you don't have closure. There are certain things where like that happen and you don't get closure. So car cutting you off and going zooming by you, or something happens in a crowded area and you're just like, WTF. Or there's other things where, somebody does something and you won't ever know why they did it. And, when it comes to the point where you don't have closure, what you should do is in this case, what it talks about is create a positive reality. And this comes from the book, The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox-Cabane. And in that, she basically talks about like how you should create a positive reality because you'd rather be happy than angry. So, and that's why I say it's like, okay, that car cut me off and whizzed by me. You could think, oh, just because they're a jerk and that like they are just trying to get to wherever they're going faster, and they don't need to get there faster. They're just being a jerk. Or you can think like, oh, shoot, man, they got to get to the hospital. Like their wife's having a baby. Obviously, there's multiple ways to think about it. And in either case, you're not going to get closure. It's like majority of the time, you're probably not ever going to see that person again. I mean, with the odds of you seeing that car again, it's unlikely. Or at least recognizing that car is even unlikely. And so it's like, if that's the case, why set us up to be angry when you can set yourself up to be happy? Or in this case, indifferent. I mean, you're not going to, if you knew somebody was going somewhere fast because they had to get to the hospital, you wouldn't be angry at them for whizzing by you. If somebody's late to something, rather than think like, oh shoot, this person just, doesn't care, all this stuff, it's like, well, like, assume the positive reality, at least until you find out what the real answer is. And then you take it for what it is when you get the answer, but while you're in that situation, create a positive reality for yourself. And it makes you get put into a happier mood, into a better mood. So it's kind of one of those things, thinking positively. I know the 90 plus other episodes in season 1 were about positivity, and this kind of goes along with that. So the sticker is, when there is no closure, create a positive reality. It's better to be happy than angry, i.e. that car cut me off and whizzed by me because they have to get to the hospital. You'll likely never see them again anyways. So that sticker is going to be on the back right passenger door on the bottom half. The next sticker is, your body language says a lot. Prepare to be comfortable. Explain any unintended body language to help the other person understand. This comes from that same Charisma Myth book by Olivia Fox-Cabane. So in that book, she mentions that, part of charisma is your body language and how you come off to other people. And the reason that I say prepare to be comfortable is because she talks about, if you go to an interview and you're in a freaking wool suit and it's 85 degrees outside and sunny and you're sweating your what off, it's probably the point where you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be pulling at your stuff. You're going to be trying to let air in. You're going to be like sweating, have beads of sweat everywhere, and try and be wiping this off, and just generally uncomfortable. And when you're generally uncomfortable, the rest of your body language shows that as well. Another example is one of the reasons why I recently got sunglasses is that when you're out in the sun and you are, for me, I have light sensitivity, so I guess when there's light, my eyes tend to squint into something that my parents found out when I was watching TV, and specifically movies. It's like in the dark, you'd have this source of light and I'd be squinting and they're like, oh man, maybe he can't see. No, it turns out to be light sensitivity, and one of the things with light sensitivity is when you're out in the sun, you tend to squint. So I recently got sunglasses to prevent myself from squinting so that I have a better visual appearance to other people, because, like I said, your body language says a lot. So you have to prepare to be comfortable. If you know you're going to be out in the sun, wear sunglasses so you're not squinting. Wear proper clothes so you're not sweating. If you're going to be doing an athletic activity, wear proper athletic clothing. Wear proper shoes. Do these things to make sure that people don't think like, oh man, this person's super uncomfortable. They don't like what they're doing, or they don't like me, or whatever it is that it is the case. They're going to read off of your body language and make an assumption. And if you are having an unintended consequence, so let's say you are sitting across from someone at a table while you guys are eating and the sun's in your eyes, you can put your hand above your eyes to show like, oh, okay, this person is literally just trying to block themselves from the sun, and they can then see that. Or you can say, hey, can we move? And this is what she talks about in the book. Hey, can we move? The sun is in my eyes. You can directly tell them, like, hey, the sun's in my eyes. Can we move? This is making me uncomfortable. Whatever it is, to help explain, like, hey, you are not intending your body language to be directed at them, but your body language is just because you're uncomfortable. I think that the most important thing is to just make sure as best as you can, if you're going to go somewhere, if you know you're doing something, to prepare yourself to be comfortable. So that is what that sticker is about. And it's one of those things where it I guess having good body language leads to better charisma. And I think it's worth trying. Your body language says a lot. Prepare to be comfortable. Explain any unintended body language to help the other person understand. So that is going to be on the bottom back of the car, next to the right wheel. It's going to be on the bottom side of that. Next sticker is, don't put someone down. Nobody likes it and they'll get defensive. You always have the option to be nice. This comes from the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I took this from that. He also talks about empathy as well. But one of the main things he mentions is, it doesn't help you to put someone down or to put them in a negative spotlight or to say something bad about them, because they're not going to like it. Nobody likes being told that they suck or that they're bad or that they're doing something wrong. Nobody likes that. You have the option to either tell them that, to be nice, to there's options there other than just putting them down. And you have that option, and you should take that option when you get the chance, because it will create a better relationship between you and them most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time it should be able to create a better relationship. Nothing is ever 100%. So leave that out there as well. But so to don't put someone down. I think this is a thing that most people usually understand, but oftentimes in practice it's hard to do. I mean, we as a society have been kind of programmed to put other people down as a part of our competitive nature. But I think it's important to try and remember that. And that sticker, sorry. Getting like the minor hiccups, or not hiccups, but whatever. So don't put someone down. Nobody likes it, and they'll get defensive. You always have the option to be nice. That sticker is going to be on the front right passenger door on the bottom half. Next sticker is take an interest in other people. They'll talk to you about something that happened to them. Don't make it about you by telling them about the time it happened to you. Listen and ask them for more details about what happened to them. This comes from Chris Voss and his master class on the art of negotiation. So basically, what we have a tendency to do as a society, and I think this also comes from David Brooks' book, what we have a tendency to do as a society is when somebody starts telling us about this thing that happened to them, and be like, oh man, I had this thing happen where this guy cut me off and I was like so angry and blah, blah. And you're going to then start to be like, oh man, I had that happen to me too. I had this time where, and you're going to start talking about yourself and the time that happened to you, rather than, having them continue on with any more details about their stuff. You're talking about the time it happened to you. It's about you now. It's not about them. It's about you. And I get part of the conversation is having both sides talk to each other. I'm not saying, I don't know what the proper balance of that is, but I think immediately when somebody gives an example of something that happened to them, you should not immediately start talking about the same time it happened to you. I think you should at least ask a few questions of detail into that. And I think it's one of those things where if they then ask you if it's ever happened to you, you can bring it up. Or, if you really feel the need to bring it up, you can. I just, it's one of those things where it's like, I just think it's important to be able to ask more details about what happened to them, to understand more about them and understand their situation and who they are. Take an interest in them, because should not always be about you. People love it to talk about themselves. And so it's a hard thing not to talk about yourself. But when people love to talk about themselves and they think that you are better as a conversationalist, they're like, oh man, I really enjoy talking to this person because they allow me to express myself and my feelings. And there's a balance there. I have not figured this out of how much do you talk to them and let them talk about themselves. And you don't want it to be, in a sense, a one-sided conversation, because then they're going to feel like, oh man, this is, for lack of a better word, a lot of people are like, oh man, this felt like an interview. You don't want it to be like that, but at the same time, you want to make sure you understand them and get their views and thoughts on it, and allow them to talk. And vent is the wrong word there, but a lesser word than vent, like the equivalent of vent, except it's not venting. You want to make sure that they're able to do that and take an interest in them so you can learn more about them. And it'll help you to have better conversations with them in the future, to be able to connect with them with knowing that these people like these certain things. I think that's important. The balance is hard. I don't have an answer for that. I don't know that I ever will. And I just got to do what I think makes the most sense. And if somebody tells me, hey, I feel like I'm in an interview, then I need to adjust. And I need to say, okay, well, that's not my intention. So, like, how do I make sure I change my habit to make sure they're not an interview? Whether they feel that way later on when I change my stuff is outside of my control, but at least I can change my habit to say, okay, maybe I think this might make it better. I mean, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but that's not up to me to decide. And I'll live with whatever happens. So take an interest in other people. They'll talk to you about something that happened to them. Don't make it about you by telling them about the time it happened to you. Listen and ask them for more details about what happened to them. It's a very, very long one. That one is going to go on the trunk door on the top of the trunk door on the right hand side. Part of the reason it's going there is because it's just so very long and there's a lot of space on the top of the trunk. Next sticker is never ask a question that starts with why. People have been conditioned from a young age to get defensive when asked why, i.e., why did you throw your cup on the floor? Why didn't you do your homework? Ask what, when, and where questions. This is from Chris Voss. In his Art of Negotiation, he talks about this and says, never ask the question why. And it's for the reasons that basically I just mentioned, is that people get defensive. They get trained when they're talking to their parents. The parents are always asking why did you do these things? When they do something bad and they're trying to get their kid to explain why they did this bad thing, and so you get defensive about it. It's natural, and I think it's one of those things you can't stop unless you get the whole world not to say why, which won't happen. Never know, but I guess the thing is you should try not to say why. You should ask. The thing is, why is a cop-out type of question. It doesn't lead to you asking anything specific. When you ask what, when, or where questions, you get more details. So you can ask if for example, if you can ask instead of why didn't you do your homework? It's like, oh, what were you doing instead of your homework? And you can find out what it is that they were doing, and you'd be like, okay, well, you clearly like doing this more than you like doing homework. But then you kind of get into like the aspect of like you understand what it is, the reasoning behind it, without asking why. And I think that then gets you into a deeper conversation and makes you understand better and quicker what's happening, and doesn't make the other person feel like they're being reprimanded and you're actually caring about what they think. It's like, okay, well, they seem to like this better, and they are appreciative of the fact that, like, oh, this person wants to understand why I did this, instead of, reprimanding me. You can use the word why, you just shouldn't ask a question with why. I mean, why is still an important dictionary word. I'm not going to say it's not, but I try to avoid it as much as I possibly can. I'm making sure I actively do that, but it happens at times where you're going to use a question that starts with why. Not everyone's going to get defensive all the time, but you're more likely conditioned to get defensive. So that sticker is never ask a question that starts with why. People have been conditioned from a young age to get defensive when asked why, i.e., why did you throw your cup on the floor? Why didn't you do your homework? Ask what, when, and where questions. So that sticker is going to be on the driver door on the bottom half of it. All right. The next sticker. We're almost done. We got 3 more left. And like I said, it's going to be a lot more than a half hour. So far, it's been about an hour. So if you're still listening, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And if you're not, I can't hear this anyway. People are more comfortable saying no rather than yes. Ask questions that allow them to say no, i.e., are you opposed to trying new foods? So this also comes from Chris Voss. A lot of different things from Chris Voss. I would imagine some of these are also within some other books as well. This one particularly is not, but some of these other ones they're in multiple things. So if I miss one, it is what it is. But I would like to say, so this particular one from Chris Voss talks about how, when you say no, you don't have to defend your opinion. You can just say no, and you're not committed to anything. And so then it makes you more easily able to be like no and keep talking. Versus when you say yes, you have to defend why you said yes to something. In that sense. And so people are more comfortable saying no. So it's like, hey, would you want to try new foods? It's easier for them to say no and be like, oh, I don't like this. Versus them saying, yeah, and then like having to follow through and then try a new food. I'm probably botching this. I really am not good at this aspect of like explaining this. Chris Voss does a really good job. I think maybe I just need to go back and re-listen to exactly how he explains what the reasoning is behind this. But he mentioned this, and he gives examples of like, talking to Robert Herjavec about buying tickets for a class for his employees, and it says, would you be against buying 4 tickets or something to pay up front? Something of the sort. I'm completely blanking. I'm sorry. But basically, people are like, oh, man, like, no, I'm not opposed to this. No, I'm not against doing this. People don't want to be against or opposed to doing something. They want to be seen as, like, unwilling to do something. They want to be seen as, like, hey, I'm open. I'm willing to do things. And so if you ask, are you opposed to trying new foods? Hopefully they're more likely to say, no, I'm not opposed to that, and then they're willing to try that new food. It's a negotiating tactic, and again, I'll need to brush up on that. I'll probably listen to that at some point later this week from his master class. But take from that what you will. It's a concept that I think is understandable without the explanation. Whether you believe it or not, that's likely where the explanation would need to come in. But people are more comfortable saying no rather than yes. Ask questions that allow them to say no, i.e., are you opposed to trying new foods? So that sticker is going to be on the bottom left by the back wheel. So the very bottom left back wheel. Back left wheel. Bottom left back. Anyway, I think you guys get it. Hopefully you do. All right, next sticker. Second to last sticker here. There are physical limitations, but talent is not an innate gift. Talent requires deliberately practicing skills to get better over time, i.e., practicing hitting a golf ball 1,000 times with the wrong technique isn't going to make you any better. Take coaching, get feedback, and yes, you will be mentally and physically exhausted. So a bit of a long one. This comes from the book that I'm reading now. It's called Talent is Overrated, and it's by Jeff Colvin. I actually got this book recommendation. It's not even a recommendation. I got this book. I decided to read this book listening to an interview that Kirk Cousins had with Rich Eisen talking about the days of him back in the Washington football team, and he got this book recommended. Mike McDaniel actually gave him the book or told him to read the book. And I was like, I wonder what this is about. This guy went from backup quarterback drafted in the 4th round to all of a sudden making over $100 million on his current contract, and has made several hundreds of millions of dollars over his career. He's a relatively successful quarterback in the National Football League. And I was like, well, I'm be interested to read what it's about. And I am not finished with this book, actually. I am only about a third of the way, actually about almost half the way into this book. It's called Talent is Overrated. One of the things, the key thing that it talks about is that, talent is not a God-given ability. It's not an innate ability. And we, as a part of the sticker, it mentions there are physical limitations. So there are things like you are a certain height, you are a certain length, you are in terms of your arms, your vocal cords have a certain physical attribute to them. And there are physical attributes that you have that limit what you can and can't do. And that is understandable, but talent, the talent that people have is not an innate ability. And he talks about different examples. So for example, he gives an example about like Mozart started playing piano when he was age 3. So the fact that, at age 21 he's able to do his first symphony. He's been playing for 18 years at that point, and he's been deliberately practicing certain skills for 18 years. I mean, you would think like, okay, that's a long amount of time, and practicing in the right way for him to be able to do that. And other examples include Tiger Woods. So Tiger Woods, he golfing on TV at age 2, but apparently when he was only 1 year old, his parents put him in a high chair and had him watch his father hit golf balls for hours at a time. And so he's being able to see this. And then they were teaching him how to grip a golf club before he could even talk. All right, that comes from this book. So those are, if you look at it, like people are deliberately practicing, seeing things, whether it's mentally or physically, you get reps doing these things. And you're doing it in a deliberate way, and it talks about, and as a part of the sticker, you could put a bunch of golf balls down and hit them all and just keep hitting it. And you're doing it the wrong way every single time, and you're not adjusting, you're not getting the proper technique, you're not getting the proper feedback to change what you're doing. It's not going to get any better. It doesn't make sense if you're going to do the same thing over and over again. What do they talk about? There's the famous quote, insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. You should be fixing your technique so that you are deliberately practicing the appropriate technique as best as you can. And by doing that, you will then get better. It's not that there's, and people think like, I have a plateau of a certain point where I can get better at, and I'm done at that point. It's like, no, you can always continually get better. The thing is, you plateaued at all the skills that you know and how good you are at that, but certain other techniques you can change up and get better at. Just because you're good doesn't mean you're great. You can be good at golf, but not great at golf. And you can be good practicing a technique that is not ideal. But to be great, you have to change it up and practice techniques that we know from science and from history and all this stuff that we can try. And certain things, there are techniques that we don't know. Maybe that'll make you even better. So that sticker is, there are physical limitations, but talent is not an innate gift. Talent requires deliberately practicing skills to get better over time, i.e. practicing hitting a golf ball 1,000 times with the wrong technique isn't going to make you any better. Take coaching, get feedback, and yes, you will be mentally and physically exhausted. Kobe Bryant talks about this all the time as well, or he talked about it all the time as well, about how in practice you should be exhausted. You should not be just fine because you're not pushing yourself to get better. So that is going to be on the, that sticker is going to be on the back right passenger door on the top half. And then the last sticker is, you are not perfect. You will make mistakes. Move on and keep living your values to the best of your abilities. Everyone thinks that, once you say something, you have to be perfect with it. You have to live by this. You have to do these things. You said it. It's hypocritical if you don't. I'm going to agree to disagree with those opinions there. We all can have our own set of values, but sometimes we'll stray from them, and whether we mean to or not, we'll stray from them. And we have to realize that we're not perfect, and when we realize we're doing something and then you did something not to your values, you got to move on and live to your values as best you can. So that, hey, this is not my values. Next time I'm going to make sure I do this. And it's not necessarily the next time, but it's just how you go about living. It's like, okay, this is not what I do. This is how I should live. And you live your life to those values. You live your life to those values as the best you can. And that's what you got to do. So there's going to be people that tell me they're going to see stuff on my card and they're going to be like, oh, well, you didn't do this. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I don't necessarily always abide by the values that I have every single time. I'm okay with that. But I know ultimately, the majority of the time, I'm going to try and live by these values. I'm going to make sure I try and do the right thing in everything that I do. And there are times where maybe you don't, and it is what it is. You have to move on, and next time, and next time, and next time, you just have to live your values how you think best. And if you could do that, hopefully, you'll be able to do things your way and live a happy life from your standpoint, because you control that aspect of it. As I said, one of the beginning stickers, happiness is a choice. And so you control how you feel. So that sticker, you are not perfect. You will make mistakes. Move on and keep living your values to the best of your abilities. That sticker is going to be on the front hood. It's going to be there, and like right underneath it says, do the right thing. That sticker is always going to be on my car. The other sticker that's currently on my car is the me factor. It's on the right passenger side. I believe it's technically on the back door, but it's pretty darn close to the median between the two. That sticker's on my car already, and I don't think I'm taking that one off again. That sticker came from college, and it just created like my own alter ego in a sense when I get competitive with certain things, to know like, hey, if people are wondering what the difference is, it's me. It's me. I'm the difference, and you have to have confidence in yourself, and that's like me having confidence in myself. And it's really only in competitive situations for like sports and the type of stuff. I generally don't mean it for everyday life, and I don't intend it for that. So people can think what they want, but that is what that's for. That gives me confidence when I do those competitive type of activities. And then, yeah, do the right thing. I mean, that's like I said, that'll always be on my car, every car I own. Just a reminder to myself to always do the right thing. No matter what happens, no matter what happens in your life, you can't stray. That to me is like the one value that I just don't think I can personally stray from. I think I even try at times to I think I can do it, and I can't. I just can't. It's just not something that I choose or want to do. With that, it's been about an hour and 15 minutes for this podcast episode. Again, those are all the stickers that are going to be put on my car. So you're going to see my car. It's going to have a ton of stickers on it if you do see it. And again, those are things to remind me every day. I think I forget when I read these books. Once you're done reading it, you kind of forget some of these things. And this is a great way for me to remember, a great way for me to be reminded of these things, and to make sure I put these things into practice. And, there's one thing about having a good memory and having the ability to remember all these things, but you're not going to be able to do that all the time. And I think this is a great way for me to have a memory jogger or a reminder. Every time I get into my car, you go into your car almost every day, that like, hey, you need to make sure like these are good values that you want to live by. Make sure to remind yourself of that. So with that, thank you for listening. If you just wanted to listen to the Cubs thing, hopefully you did. And, that was 5 minutes long. So with that, I will see you all next time. I don't know when the next time is going to be. This was rather long, so hopefully this suffices for a little bit. But have a great Labor Day weekend, and have a great rest of your day.